Fiance keeps trying to call off our engagement and won't commit to a date. Is this possible to work through, and would I be silly to wait around for a year? My 32M fiance proposed to me on a trip in early December. I, 25F, said yes, and ever since we came home, it's been arguing. We have been together since October 2023. The first argument started with the ring. He put no effort into it and gave me his mom's 10-year anniversary ring. He said it was sentimental. BC of the story behind it. His dad sold his good gun to buy his mom the ring. He didn't even remember to bring it on the trip. I told him so many times my style of jewelry, not gold, and of course he can't remember that. It was a 2-week-long argument because when I approached him, I was gentle and asked if we could see about resetting the ring, something his mom suggested. He eventually pulled it out of me that I didn't like the style of the ring, it was so bulky, and I was very kind and gentle when I told him. He said that it doesn't matter my preferences, it's about the thought. Apparently he talked to his mom and she agreed with him. It feels like I was set up. He was apprehensive, inflexible, and immediately started calling me materialistic. He's been saying that about the wedding too, that I, and all women, made the wedding, decor, ring, dress, and aesthetic all about me. That I care so much about photography and all of it. I suggested a small micro wedding that was simpler to meet his needs, but then he said he wanted a bigger wedding that incorporates his business trucks. He has his own company, so I have absolutely tried to include him. He's just been so back and forth, it's exhausting. I can't make him happy, and no matter what I'm somehow selfish for enjoying and looking forward to something. This led to him telling me he wasn't sure he wanted to marry me still, of course a month after he proposed, and he blasted our happy news all over FB without asking me. This upset me. How can you propose to someone and then a month later BC of an argument over a ring that he attacked me about? He broke a huge boundary with me that I found out about the day before the proposal, and I told him thank you for telling me. I will support you and help you work through this as much as I don't like it. I still said yes to him. He admitted he has a severe, crippling porn addiction, something I was upfront about at the beginning of our relationship that I am not wanting in my life. After telling me he wasn't sure, one of his friend's wives reached out to me and asked if I was okay. She told me her husband has been listening to my fiance call him for months, going back and forth. Every time we have any argument he calls him and tells him he's done with me. The next day he says the opposite. How confusing that must be. He told me that he will need time to make a decision, but when I ask how long, he has no answer. He just says to me that love is patient. Problem is, I filed bankruptcy so that all of my medical debt would vanish before he proposed to me. I have sleep apnea, which brought on a lot of medical bills last year even with insurance. He also told me he needs me to clean and cook while working full-time, remote customer service job, and I've agreed to that, while also paying $600 to $700 a month in organic groceries for him. I was enrolled in school and had to drop out BC. I couldn't juggle it all. He told me that it doesn't make sense to stay in school if I want to get married and be a stay-at-home wife. I've made so many sacrifices for him and he doesn't see it. I told him he made a commitment to me. If he wanted to propose and made that decision, he needs to know for sure if he wants to set a date and start slowly planning with me, and go to couples counseling. I suggested this and he said no. He then went back and said he would go, but I don't think he will. He told me he needs until January 2026 to see if we both work on our communication, and then from there he will decide if we will put the deposit for the venue for August 2026. I told him that is not enough time for me. He won't be able to help me with planning. That is his business's busy season. Not to mention I feel like that's dragging me along. He says he doesn't need counseling BC, he already knows what he needs to work on. Is it unreasonable to be demanding an answer and not being okay with waiting a year engaged and in the dark? I told him I'm not sure I want to be with him at all if he wants to drag me out until January of 2026. I said that love is patient, but it isn't blind. I'm not gonna go through life in hopes I'm perfect and up to his standards in every way, shape and form. I feel like that will make me go crazy and feel like my future is on the line. I can't make any major decisions like going back to school without his full support and commitment, and knowing what is going on with us. I need to know where his thoughts are, and it takes so much to get an answer. Please be honest if I'm the asshole and being unreasonable. I feel like an entire year for him to decide he wants to set a date and make a deposit to know he wants to marry me is doing myself a disservice. TLDR, fiance keeps trying to call off our engagement and won't commit to a date. Is this possible to work through, and would I be silly to wait around for a year? Second story. I, 28F, and my boyfriend, 29M, have been together for almost 9 years, living together for 7.5 years. We have had plenty of good times and a lot of bad times. There are quite a few deal breakers for me that are consistent in my partner, and I either have to be okay with it, or move on. These are things that would turn me away if I didn't know him today and just met him for the first time. I feel awful saying that, but it's true. I have had to carry us financially for our entire relationship, between alcoholism, a gambling addiction, and poor life choices. He has never been able to provide financially, let alone pull his own weight in our relationship. I keep track of what he owes me, and he sometimes pays me back slowly. I have to repeatedly ask for his share of rent, and he's usually unable to pay it. He has a steady job and works a lot. Making plans with him is miserable because of his frustration with spending any kind of money. We want to travel more, but his finances hold us back. I will sometimes go on trips with friends, but wish badly to have a partner to travel with who could pay their own way. He claims he doesn't gamble anymore, but he's broken my trust before with that, so I don't believe him. Our sex life is slim to none. For a long time I thought maybe something is wrong with me, but I've come to realize that it's not me. If my needs were being met, I think my interest in sex would be better. I simply am not turned on by him. I have dealt with 8.5 years of his alcoholism. I used to drink more, but it was when we'd go out, party, dance, hang with friends, etc. Nowadays I'll have a few drinks, but don't care much for it. When he's drunk I am completely repulsed by him and want nothing to do with him. He turns into someone else, and we will usually have some sort of argument that doesn't make much sense since it's hard to communicate with someone who's drunk. I have said to him for years that I refuse to be with an alcoholic, but over time that has turned into a lie and a betrayal to my own self. I have had to remind him hundreds of times that I will want to leave if he continues to drink this way. I truly wouldn't mind my partner drinking on occasion, but to identify with drinking and to allow it to become an everyday thing is not okay in my eyes. His drinking completely goes against my standards, which makes me feel like I'm settling. I care deeply for life and my health, so having a partner who doesn't have the same health standards as me is extremely hard to go forward with. I can't seem to trust him, depend or rely on him for things. He's forgetful and can put us into some pretty bad situations if I'm not leading the way and checking everything he's doing. For example, he will leave his keys hours away from home and get us locked out, and he'll leave my car unlocked if he uses it. Partially why we don't travel together is 1, I'd have to pay, and 2, I'd feel like I'd have to lead the way and make sure things are handled. He has no experience doing anything of the sort. I've been told this is just a guy thing, but the lack of planning things or gift giving is horrendous. If I want flowers or a gift, I have to express that, when he knows that's one thing I'd like in a partnership that makes me feel seen and loved. I have communicated this often. We usually have to plan anniversaries, birthdays, and Christmases for a later date, because he wasn't ready to celebrate it yet. Hasn't thought of a gift or a way to celebrate like a planned date or something. Most dates that we go on have been my ides, and I'm usually the one booking things and doing all the logistics. I have tried to step back and let him carry more of the load, and it works sometimes. But I wish he would have the initiative to do these things on his own, or come home to tell me, I made us a reservation, or I booked us a room and we're going here. I don't want children, but I could see being open to it later in life. Yes, I know I only have maybe 10 years to decide that. If my relationship was different, I think my mind could maybe change, but personally I think I'm set on not having any. We've always been great friends, but our partnership seems to be on the back burner a lot of the time. I do love him, but I'm genuinely unsure whether this is romantic love meant for marriage, or if this is an intense love for a friend, companion, or family member. We definitely consider ourselves family. We typically have a good time when we're around each other. He makes our place feel like a home. I trust him when it comes to loyalty for the most part. He's very kind and honest. He loves me a ton, but based on how he's been in our relationship over the years, it's hard not to question how much he actually loves me. I feel like he would do anything for me since I know he cares deeply for me and has always been by my side, but to see the same unchanged patterns in his behavior is very disheartening. I've lost hope and have a lot of resentment for him. We want to go to couples therapy, but paying for it would be an issue. I would have to do it, which adds to our problem. Ironically, a lot of my personal needs aren't being met, and sometimes I think to myself maybe I'm being judgmental or putting unrealistic standards on him, but then again, those are just my standards. How can I know if this is worth working harder at, or just to break it off?